American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says President Trump should delay his State of the Union address until after the government reopens, or just deliver it in writing. That's the way it used to be done. Jared Halpern has more.
The Constitution requires the president from time to time give Congress information of the State of the Union and recommend to their consideration such measures he shall judge necessary and expedient. But there's no requirement how that information should be given to Congress. George Washington did it in person, but Thomas Jefferson simply delivered his address in writing to Congress. It wasn't until 1913 that Woodrow Wilson renewed the practice of a State of the Union speech. Decades later, in 1965, President Lyndon Johnson delivered the speech in prime time. Before that, it was an afternoon event. On Capitol Hill, Jared Halpern, Fox News.
More migrants have joined the latest caravan that has originated in Honduras.
Hundreds more migrants making up the latest Central American caravan have crossed peacefully from Honduras into Guatemala. About 500 people, including dozens of children, showed documents at that border last night. The first groups of migrants left a bus station in San Pedro Sula on Monday night, while others were walking and hitchhiking in the rain. More people continue to arrive at the bus station, trying to catch up with the others, as the caravan numbers are expected to grow. The caravans have been cited by President Trump as justification to build a wall at the Mexican border, which has led to a partial government shutdown. Tanya J. Powers, Fox News.
An evangelical leader and Trump advisor board member has sent a letter to President Trump regarding immigration and border security. Chad Groening has more.
Dr. Richard Land is president of the Southern Evangelical Seminary. His letter to the president said that many in the faith community strongly support Mr. Trump's efforts to stem the flow of illegal entry into the country, as well as curb victimization and criminality in migrant caravans. Land, who serves on the president's Evangelical Advisory Board, says this is clearly a national survival issue.
If all the people who wanted to come here just from Latin America were to come here, it would fundamentally alter the nature of the nation. And the irony is that sooner rather than later, the people who desperately want to come here would find that the country has become more like the one they left than the one they aspired to join. And this is really a question of national suicide. If we don't control our borders, we will be literally engulfed by people from other countries, and they will fundamentally alter and change the American culture they found so attractive and wanted to come to in the first place.
And Land says President Trump cannot back down on the issue of the wall.
The Democratic Party, clearly the leadership, is into a full-blown resistance mode where they're not going to do anything that the president wants done. And the president understands that if he gives in on this issue, his presidency's over. And he's not going to do that. He's not going to give in.
Land says the Democrats clearly do not care about the 800,000 federal workers affected by the government shutdown. I'm Chad Groening.
The widow of a murdered California camper has filed a $90 million wrongful death lawsuit. Jeff Manasso has more.
Erica Wu's husband, 35-year-old Tristan Beaudet, was killed last summer while he was camping in a tent with the couple's two daughters at Malibu Creek State Park.
Sheriff's deputies responded to a 911 call where they found an adult male suffering from a gunshot wound.
California Park spokesman Tony Hoffman, one of at least 7 other shootings in or near the park in 2 years, according to Wu's lawsuit against L.A. County and the state for what she alleges was their failure to warn the public. Prosecutors charged ex-convict 42-year-old Anthony Rauda with Beaudet's murder last week. Jeff Manasso, Fox News.
Kenya's president says the terrorist attack on a hotel complex is over, but 14 people are dead, including an American.
Fellow citizens,
Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta addressing the nation.
We are grieving as a country
after a gun and bomb attack on a luxury hotel and shopping complex in the capital, Nairobi. After 20 hours, the president saying the siege is over.
And all the terrorists eliminated.
The attack claimed by Somali group Al-Shabaab, an Al-Qaeda affiliate and frequent target of U.S. airstrikes. Simon Owen, Fox News.
American Family News is online at onenewsnow.com. I'm Rusty Pugh.
Listen, do you really know who Jesus is? And let me help you to know who he is. You think about all of these kind of false Jesuses that are floating around social media. Oh, you know the Jesus. You know, you got the ethnocentric Jesus. You got the political Jesus, left-wing Jesus. You know, all these popular Jesuses. But the question I think all of us need to ask is, will the real Jesus stand up? Please stand up.
Please stand up. Tuned in to Equipped, weekday afternoons at 12 Central on Urban Family Talk. He's sharp, pointed, and insightful. This is Stacy on the Right on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk.
I would hope our Democratic colleagues will reverse course and work seriously with this White House to reach an agreement that can become law and fulfill our promises to our country.
The longer Leader McConnell allows this to continue, the more he and Republican senators will be tied to the president and the president's disgraceful tactic of government by extortion.
We can't continue kicking this down the road. We can't continue to ignore it. We know that there is a crisis at the border. American lives are at stake, and the president wants to do what his constitutional duty is to protect those. And I find it just appalling that Democrats are unwilling to do anything to fix this problem, work with the president, and open the government.
And now, Stacy Washington.
Welcome to the program. Hey there. Like the guy said, it's Stacy Washington here on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk. And we have a jam-packed, wonderful program planned for you. We're going to be speaking with Angie May, director of the AFA store, about some of the things that we sell there. American Family Association, we are a multifaceted organization, and we have a ton of cool stuff that you can get your hands on, from books to, Sanctity of Life prayer cards. We have cleaning products. I mean, we're just full service over here. So we're going to talk to her about that. We are also going to delve into immigration. We're back on that topic again today. I think there's something super important going on, and I had my regular weekly time away from all of this morning, and so I wasn't able to get quite over to Twitter and send out some offensive tweets, but suffice it to say, I just want to get it out there for people to understand. It is not just a bully tactic or a PR operation that Nancy Pelosi is saying that the president shouldn't have a State of the Union because the government is shut down. She doesn't want to have the State of the Union because the networks would be forced to cover it and she would not be able to respond. Yeah, the Democrats get a response time afterwards, but the State of the Union address is normally an hour-plus long speech. A wide-ranging number of topics are covered. The president addresses the State of the Union, as in all of the states and territories that comprise our great nation. And when he does that, he gets to wax poetic about what it means to be an American. He gets to point to people in the audience and call them out for their bravery or heroism or sacrifices or for their unique contributions to the nation. And the entire Supreme Court will be in residence. And of course, Ruth Bader Ginsburg is feeling ill. We do hope for her recovery. We never want to hope for anyone, regardless of their political affiliation, that they would not do well when they're sick and recuperating from a surgery as she is. But it's highly unlikely that she will be able to attend the State of the Union. And so all of these things work against the Democrats' current posturing as they work very diligently to make the Steve King basically, it's a lynching that they're doing to Steve King, Congressman King, as they work to make that a part of the national narrative and things that we're discussing around the water cooler and the dinner table and et cetera. That's what they're wanting to make the main, red meat of the day. Not the fact that the Mueller investigation is really just centering on some people who are in the Trump orbit who've made some mistakes but have nothing to do with the campaign, not mistakes coordinated with the campaign. But deeper than that, they need to draw attention away from the fact that the 30-day mark is approaching and there will be reductions in force made automatically because when the government is shut down for 30 days and workers are furloughed and they're non-essential, those people will be possibly let go. And so I want to clarify here a couple different things. I have to hit a few topics. Let's just call this housekeeping, okay? First of all, I have close family members who work for the federal government. So when I talk about making government smaller or reduction in force or draining the swamp or, a trap that's been set by Donald Trump that would reduce the federal workforce by possibly 800,000 workers or somewhere in that neighborhood, I'm not gleefully speaking about people being unemployed. But in today's job market, if you're coming out of federal employment and you have a clean record of employment there, you will have a wealth of opportunities in the private sector. We have more jobs than we have people available to work them. What better way to boost the economy and our GDP than to take jobs that take between 9 and 18 private citizens paying taxes to fund, 9 to 18 private citizens to fund one government job. I'll say that one more time. It takes between 9 and 18 taxpayers like you and I to fund a government job. So why not move those fantastic employees, if that's what they are, to the private sector and shrink the size of our government? We're not talking about essential employees here. We're talking about people who've been furloughed for 30 days and they're therefore deemed not only non-essential, but their jobs are RIF'd, reduction in force, because the government is still shut. So this isn't personal. And for people who are currently experiencing that, they don't have that first paycheck. Again, when this happens in the private sector, we don't have huge puff pieces for people. People are laid off from this company or that almost every single day. And the answer to that comes straight out of God's word. And it's not daily confession for today. This is just something that's a nugget that we all need to hide away. You, me, every one of us. And that is that the Bible calls for us to be prepared for every eventuality and to store away provisions for times like this. So that being said, if anyone finds himself in a situation where they're looking at being reduced, involuntarily removed from their workplace, it's a difficult time. My husband and I have been through it. It is no fun, but God is greater. And so please don't take things that I'm talking about here on the show to be personal attacks on your family because they work for the federal government. My family works for the federal government too. But this isn't about a personal issue. It's about, other than the fact that we have families being destroyed, parents mourning over their children, and a border through which terrorists can openly flow. That's the personal side of the issue, not any particular family or group of people who may or may not have family members who are employed by the federal government. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, we have quite a few people who get really triggered when I tell the truth about President Obama. And so I totally respect other people worshiping President Obama as their Lord and Savior, because it's your right to get on the road to hell and take the bullet train there. It's your choice and decision to say, I would rather idolize and worship a human person who is fallible and sin-filled and doesn't even claim the Savior than to worship the one true God and to give my life to Jesus Christ. And if that's the decision you've made, please bang on, keep doing what you're doing, because it's your choice. I recommend that you give your life to Christ, but you have the decision to make. I can't control you. But that same statement works both ways. No email is going to make me change the content of this show or rename it Stacy on the Left. Referring to other hosts on either Urban Family Talk or American Family Radio and comparing and contrasting me to them positively or negatively will neither change the content of this show, it will not adjust what appears on the show sheet, and it will not change what I cover here. Because if you want to have a show that sounds like some other show on this network, then you start your own show and work your way up through radio and put in tens of thousands of hours of your personal time and family time, writing, speaking, traveling, attending conferences, reading articles, and giving up time with your kids and your husband, or kids and your wife, or your pets, or whoever you have, and work your way up the ladder and get your own program and call it You on the Left and make it exactly like the show that you like. But what I'm saying is, you do you, worry about yourself, and I'm going to do me. This program will never have a leftist orientation. We will never kowtow to Barack Obama's, his acolytes, the people who worship him and have his pictures up all over their house. We will never, ever stop telling the truth here on Stacy on the Right about what his presidency did to this nation and what the current status of things is as a direct result of the judgment that came upon us as a country because we elected him. We're still living under that judgment, and I'm going to tell the truth about it. And so, it's really cute when I get emails like that, because I always wonder, who is this person and why do they think they get to help me program the show? I think I should leave off with this as I move into the daily confession, that is, God bless you. Get your own show. Now, today on the program, we are going to be delving into this El Chapo Act as described by Senator Ted Cruz himself. The remains of 127 dead migrants recovered in southern Arizona in 2018, and we'll cover the numbers going back a few years, which will reach into the Obama presidency and the Obama administration, which means same numbers of migrants dead, the remains, to die in the desert out there, crossing the border. And I mean, nobody seems to care. Nancy Pelosi doesn't care. Barack Obama didn't care. Susan Rice didn't care. And we're also going to now, right this second, delve into the daily confession. And yesterday we talked a little bit about not delving into the occult. That's horoscopes. That's going into, get your palm read. That's Ouija boards. That's any kind of thing that relies on luck or trying to reach the spirit world to get answers for something in your life, as opposed to just saying, you know what, Lord, I have no idea what's going on here right now. Can you help me? Can you show me the way? Send your word to me, whether it's in the word or whether it's, my husband telling me, because often that's how I find God tells me. When I've prayed for an answer and I'm looking and I'm thinking, when do I find out what's going on here? Like, Lord, I know you hear my prayer. What's going on? And sometimes, because my mind is always running at like 1,000 miles an hour, God will send a person. Usually it's my husband. Sometimes one of the kids will answer what I'm talking about. Today I was sitting in Bible study, and the lady next to me, she is a sweet, godly woman, and she is wise, answered something that I've been praying about. It's like a why question. God, why is this happening? She answered it in talking about one of the answers to the questions that we were discussing. So God is real. He wants you to ask him for the answers. And going into the spirit realm and the occult, you're gonna speak to spirits, but you're also going to open a door that you can't shut on your own, and you defile yourself. So I want to make sure that I'm clear about that. Today's daily confession is it's a question. What will they say about you? What will they put on your headstone? What will people say about you when you've gone on to be with the Lord? When you've taken your path into the afterlife, what will they say about you? 1 Chronicles 10:13-14 says, King James Version, so Saul died for his transgression, which he committed against the Lord, even against the word of the Lord, which he kept not, and also for asking counsel of one who had a familiar spirit to inquire of it. This is when he went to the medium to find out what was going to happen with the Philistines, and inquired not of the Lord. Therefore he slew him, and turned the kingdom unto David, the son of Jesse. So it doesn't talk about it doesn't talk about any of the other things he did as king, like if he pardoned people or if he built things, or if, his legacy ended up being boiled all the way down to one time he travels into the Philistine territory. He seeks the advice of a medium about what the Philistines are going to do to the Israelites, because he doesn't have David fighting for him and leading his army anymore. And because he did that, not only was he killed, but all of his sons were killed, which is such a waste of life for the sons, but specifically for Jonathan, who had a covenant with David and was integral to keeping David alive the entirety of their friendship. And so there's a desperate sense about when we're in crisis or turmoil and we want to know what's going to happen. We're wondering, what does this mean? At no point should we ever be tempted or yield to the temptation to go seek out the palm readers and all of that. I've seen them in the malls here locally. I was actually at Fox News back when the Megyn Kelly show was still a thing, and coming back from an audience panel show that I did there, and walking by myself down towards Times Square to the hotel, and this lady was sitting on a chair outside of, I'm not sure if it was a dinner place or what, but I could hear the sound of plates and, music coming out of the doorway. And she called out to me and she said, I have someone who wants to talk to you. And I can't tell you, when I turned and looked at her, it's like she struck fear into my heart. And I started walking faster, and she said, don't run away. I have something to tell you. And I was like, I had to get away from this woman. I didn't quite run, but I got straight over to my hotel, because it's not that these people who say they can speak to spirits, it's not that they can't speak to them. It's that once they start speaking to the spirits and to you, and you start participating in that, how are you going to get out of it? Do you think you're more powerful than those spirits? The only thing they bow to is the name of Jesus Christ. So don't do it. Instead, work to please the Father. Communicate with him. Draw others to Christ. Read and study your Bible. Do not give up. Don't faint at the sight of peril, because in the valley of the shadow of death, he is with you. Don't give up. Stay the course and keep away from the occult. Then you'll know what they're going to say about you when you go on. We'll be back with Angie May right after this.
you've been hearing the messages from Preborn asking listeners to join together to help save babies' lives through ultrasound, and you're not sure how to respond. Here's the story of one woman who took that step.
I heard about Mission Preborn just before December of last year and asked my husband if we could give at least $140. Just last week we received our packet. My husband came in the house and he was telling me, this is our preborn packet, the ultrasounds. I started crying without even seeing them. Not only were there 5 babies, but one of the moms was having twins. We were just elated for that.
For $140, you can sponsor 5 ultrasounds, and you'll receive a story and a picture of babies' lives that were spared. All gifts are tax deductible, and 100% of your sponsorship goes to saving babies. To donate, dial pound 250 and say the keyword baby, or go to preborn.com.
Hi, I'm Crawford Loritz with a legacy moment. Some years ago, I was treated to a wonderful fishing trip on the White River. We caught a lot of fish. You want to know why? Well, we had a guide who knew the conditions of the river. He knew where the fish were likely to be. He understood what bait to use, how to land the fish, everything. You see, he was a pro. Some of us are not experiencing a fruitful ministry because we're not depending upon our guide, the Holy Spirit. We're depending on everything else. We need to cultivate a sensitive ear and an obedient heart to the leading of the Holy Spirit. That's why I love the story in Acts chapter 8 of Philip the evangelist and how he responded to God's direction. Listen to Acts chapter 8, verse 26. Now an angel of the Lord said to Philip, rise and go toward the south to the road that goes down from Jerusalem to Gaza. Well, Philip goes south and he meets an Ethiopian riding in his chariot. Philip pulls alongside this government official who's reading the scriptures without understanding a word he's reading. Philip explains to him what the scriptures mean. Verse 35, and Philip opened his mouth, and beginning from this scripture, he preached Jesus to him. And as they went along the road, they came to some water. And the eunuch said, look, water. What prevents me from being baptized? And Philip said, if you believe with all your heart, you may. And he answered and said, I believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. See, because Philip responded to the clear, obvious leading of God, God connected him with this Ethiopian eunuch and led him to Jesus Christ. Here's what I want you to remember today. The nature of ministry is supernatural. What God wants done, he wants to do through us. So let's follow our guide.
More information about the ministry of Crawford Loritz can be found online at livingalegacy.org.
You can download episodes of Stacy on the Right from the podcast page on AFR.net or UrbanFamilyTalk.com. Now, back to the show on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk.
What's up, citizens? Thanks for being with us today. I'm broadcasting live and direct to you from the heartland of America, where we're still covered with snow, and I keep yelling out, are you okay? Because we have a clay tile roof and huge foot-deep, huge slabs of snow and ice with icicles on it keep sliding off the roof, and when it hits the ground, it sounds like a couple of cars crashing together. So last night, I went running around the corner looking for our 15-year-old because I thought she'd fallen down somewhere. It sounded like a huge, crash, almost explosion. She's like, I'm fine, Mommy, I'm fine. I was like, well, what was that? She said, it's ice sliding off the roof. I was like, oh, this happens every time we have a big snow. So I was just right before the show started, I was upstairs and I heard this huge crash and I started freaking out, and I remembered, oh, it's just snow sliding off the roof. So welcome to my world. We're still covered with snow, and we're supposed to have a huge freezing snap this weekend. So yay, global warming. Where are you? Al Gore, we've been gypped. All right, welcome back. Stacy on the Right on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk. Right now, it's my pleasure to welcome Angie May, Director of AFA Store, afastore.net, to find out more about what we're talking about here. Angie, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so let's talk about this. I was saying at the beginning of the show how American Family Association and American Family Radio is a multifaceted, sparkling group of different ministries all coming together and providing all kinds of cool stuff like Sanctity of Life prayer cards and Redeem Clean and American Family Devotion coffee. So let's talk about that.
Okay, that sounds good. Yeah, right now you're talking about it being so cold where you are. The Devotion coffee is probably one of the best things that we've got going to keep you warm right now. As a matter of fact,
I love coffee, so
everybody in this office loves their coffee, and so it has been staff approved. It is a staff favorite, and it is what we call it white chocolate raspberry, and it is really good. It's real mildly flavored, and you can get that at afastore.net, and it is a 12-ounce bag for about $11, and for a suggested donation of that, and it's a pretty good thing to have.
Okay, so to be honest with you, while you were just talking, I remembered. So the last time I came, so maybe 3 share-a-thons ago, I had American Family Coffee at the break room, because that's what y'all serve there, right? In the building. Okay, so I had some. I don't think it was the raspberry flavor. I think I had some variation of the black coffee. It didn't have any like fruit flavors, but I had it while I was there because I'm a huge coffee drinker. So when I come to a work building, like an office, and they have coffee there, I love to drink the coffee that's in office buildings because it's different than what you buy at the grocery store.
Right.
So I've already had it. I was just thinking to myself, why haven't I had it? I have. I had it the last time I was in Tupelo, and it was good. So I can give my verification on that.
We have it flavored and unflavored, and you probably had one of, I think you were here the share-a-thon that was part of our premium, possibly.
Yeah.
And this coffee is actually roasted just probably maybe about 45 minutes away from our home offices. And we have hooked up with a local roaster, and so everything is kind of homegrown and local, and it's good. It can't be beat.
All right, so that's the coffee, and that sounds yummy, people, if you're listening and you're a coffee drinker. In fact, I have a latte right here because I have a little espresso maker at home, so I'm one of those people. So I really love coffee, and I think one of the things that really excites me about the American Family Coffee is that some of those proceeds go to the ministry work, correct?
Right, and it helps us with our pro-life things that we do, and it goes into our war chest, is what we call it.
Which we all need to be trying to help build up the war chest. And this is the ministry side where the work of the kingdom gets done that we're all trying to be a part of.
Yes.
So then, okay, let's talk about that coffee is called Devotion, a mild flavor coffee with a Brazilian base, fresh raspberries, sweet chocolate. Excuse me. So that's fantastic. But then we can also, I'm on the store right now, and it's afastore.net. There's also something called Redeem Clean. So
yes,
let's talk about that. Have you used that before?
I have used that. It's we just had a couple of donors. I mean, we're such a donor-based ministry, and there were a couple of donors that just came up with this idea that they wanted to help us sustain. They wanted to sustain us with donations, and so we partnered with them. They created this. It is everything is natural. They can really describe it better than I can, but everything it's a wonderful thing, and it lasts a long time. And that part of those proceeds come back to us every month. And so they've just been wonderful to partner with.
Okay. So I've heard them talk about it on the kind of promos in between on my program, and on other times during the air when I'm listening, I'm listening to other shows. I hear them talk about it. But if you were anything like, I know I'm not an anomaly. Moms get really picky about the kind of detergent that they use.
Yes.
If you have anybody with allergies in the household, it can be really, it's such a hard thing to find something that doesn't trigger the allergies of any person who's got stuff going on, anybody who's got eczema or skin issues. And then there's just the overall smell. If you get used to using one product, then switching, it's almost like trying to get someone to change their last name. They're just not going to want to do it. So when you've used it, what would you compare it to, or what would you say the scent of it is like?
To me, the scent on the regular, we have a free and clear that is completely no scent, and nothing harsh, no colors, no artificial anything in that. But the scent on the normal, it reminds me sort of like a Downy, something kind of like that, maybe even lighter than that. It's not heavy at all. There's kits that come with dryer sheets, and there's kits that come without it. So you can just get the laundry kit without the dryer sheets, just the 2 bottles. It's like a bottle of, it's about 50 ounces of liquid that you get, which this goes a long way. You don't have to use a whole lot of this at all.
Okay, so this is not the pods that we see. This is the liquid that you pour into the lid.
Right.
And is that compatible with the front-loading washing machines?
It is.
Okay.
It is all high energy efficient, and They have done their research on this and made sure that it is compatible with septic systems and everything.
Okay, perfect. So these are the kind of things I'm asking these because Angie, for moms, you have to take all those things into consideration.
You do,
because sometimes you know how it is. You try something new, and then at my house, people will say, "What's that new smell? I smell something different in the clothes."
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And I'm like, did you not notice when you put it in? It's different. I switched the scent, and they're like, sometimes I'll be like, "Oh, it's nice," but I have had complaints come back from the kids like, "This is not a scent that I like." This is who these people are, and I know they're not only at my house; they're all over.
It's everywhere. People get in their own little rut.
Oh yeah. And for us moms, it's hard because we're trying to economize, support a ministry that we love, and please the people who are living in the house who will complain. So
it's hard being a mom, isn't it?
Well, it's like herding cats, but you get the rewards of the hugs and the kisses.
Nailing Jello on the wall.
I'm telling you, it's so fun, but it's also like. Sometimes I wonder how I made it through the younger years, and now that they're teenagers, I'm like, how am I making it through this years? This is an adventure. Okay, so those sound awesome, and I honestly had thought I want to try the Redeem Clean, but what I do is I listen to it. I'm like, oh, I want to try that, and then the time gets away. So I want to point people again to the afastore.net. You just click on the link at the homepage. There's a big block. It says Redeem Clean. It takes you over. Or you can order the Redeem Clean products by phone by calling 877-485-5527. So then the last thing that I wanted to kind of cover, which looks really interesting, and I love these because I actually went on to Amazon and I bought these adorable. They're not really prayer cards. They're like it's like a scripture printed on a pretty little card, and it's a little like maybe 2.5 by 2.5 card, and I actually punch a hole in it and I use it as like a gift tag. So these are better than those because instead of just having a scripture, this is a Sanctity of Life prayer card. You get a 10-pack. What's on these cards?
It is a prayer that is based off of Psalm 139, and it just kind of helps you pray through this season. You know, this is Sanctity of Life Sunday is actually this coming Sunday.
Oh.
So this is the perfect time of year to really focus on this. You know, we are wonderfully made, and these prayer cards have been very needed. We've had a lot of calls for these. As a matter of fact, right now, these are free shipping completely. They're just $5 for a 10-pack that you can share with people in your Sunday school or share with them in your church or small groups. And it's just a good reminder to pray through that scripture and just, you know, focus on, you know, how God has knit us together and how important all life is. And I think they're beautifully made. We do a lot of these prayer cards through the years, and this is one that has probably been one of our most requested.
Okay, so it's a pack of 10. It's a two-sided card, and it has a prayer for the sanctity of life based upon Psalm 139.
Yes.
And so it's $5 for this pack of, it's $5 for a pack of 10, but if you buy 20...
It goes down.
Oh, okay, because I was trying to make sure I was seeing this right. You actually pay less if you buy more. If you buy 20.
The more you buy, the more you save.
Oh, okay. That's awesome. So if you buy 10, you pay $5. If you buy 20, then you pay $3.50.
Each. For each pack.
Each pack. Okay, so $3.50 for 2 packs.
Right.
Or $5 for 1 pack.
Right.
So that sounds like a deal to me. My little deal.
And free shipping now.
My deal antenna are up. They're like, what's going on here? This sounds like a deal. And it's a really pretty card. It has a mom and a baby on there. And I think one thing that it really works for is it's a reminder to pray for this issue. So you can give it to someone in a gift that you're already going to give them, or you can give it to them, you know, slide it in their Bible or hand it to them at church. It's a great way to kind of talk about the issue, but not from the kind of political side where people are fighting, but from the side where you're just asking them to pray for the sanctity of life, which means they don't have to talk about the issues surrounding it.
Exactly.
They can just pray over it. That sounds wonderful.
Yes. I think it's a great reminder of how we can pray. Some people, you know, they just need a little help along the way just to kind of do their prayer, and praying through the scripture is just the best way to do that. And so this is just all written out for you, and it's easy to follow, and it's just a great reminder.
It is. And I also want to point out that sometimes someone can have something like laying on their heart that they feel like, you know, I'm supposed to do something about this. And then you come along with this prayer card and you say, hey, I just felt like I wanted to share this with you. This is something I'm praying over, and I hope you'll join me in praying over it in your quiet time. And they will see that, and they may not say anything to you about it, but they'll feel like, I was just feeling like I should pray about this, but I didn't even know where to begin.
Right.
And this is a great way for them to just dive right in with a prayer that's from Scripture. So there's nothing to argue with. There's nothing to worry about. There's no angle. It's just straight up from the Scripture.
Right.
You're praying for the issue, and then you feel like you're answering what God asked you to do. They're doing what God maybe laid on their heart to do. It's an amazing tool.
It is an amazing tool. I wanted to go back and talk to you about Redeem Clean for just a second.
Oh, sure.
One of the ministries within AFA that this really benefits is Engage, and that is one of our projects that is geared towards millennials. And so some of those resources come back and help them be able to make more resources for that age group right now too. So that's kind of a geared project for Redeem Clean.
That's fantastic. So we've had Cedra Sarton on the program from Engage magazine, and we've been really excited about the work that they're doing because the millennials are the first generation to be less church than their parents.
Right.
And it's kind of a burden because if your kids are anywhere near that generation, like our kids are in whatever they're going to call the generation after the millennials, that's where our
Z
kids
or something like
yeah,
that.
they don't know what they're going to call
They
it.
don't.
They'll be old, like they'll be older than us when they figure out what
When
they're
they
going to call
figure it out, yes.
Yeah, but they're in that group. And so they're already starting to put out, like they got a lot of data on the millennials, but they're now starting to put out some data about this next group, and they're even less church than the millennials. So the trend is going in the wrong direction. And I can tell you, Angie, as I look through my email and I see people calling me an Uncle Tom and telling me that working here at American Family Radio makes everybody who works at AFA my master and that I'm a slave to, to the radio station. I don't know how that works when I'm getting paid. But anyway, when I read that kind of stuff and it's coming from people who are well-educated and they have a ton of different, like their backgrounds should paint a rosier picture for them thinking-wise, that they should be able to think. I just, when I read those, I immediately go to that I'm first of all, I'm over the target, and it is not me that is the issue, it's the gospel. And Jesus Christ is going to be glorified whether I work here or not. His kingdom will come whether I work here or not. And so my job is to do the best that I can while I'm working here and to support everything that's going on. And I think, I just want the listeners to know that the best thing that they can do is if they have something that they're looking to get, like if you're looking for a small gift for someone, or you felt like I want to get something to kind of spur this group to pray, or maybe a child or family members to pray, then get the Sanctity of Life prayer cards. Buy a 10-pack, just give it a try. Or if you're thinking, that coffee sounded all right, don't wait, pull the trigger. Just get some of it, whatever flavor you like. There is a sampler pack. I want to point that out. And there's a ton of options on here. There's actually a drop-down menu for the coffee, which I think is fantastic. A sampler pack, decaf, unflavored, flavored, and then merchandise. So you can get tumblers, all that stuff. Or, go for the Redeem Clean if that sounds much more up your alley. That supports the pro-life work and other things that we're doing here at American Family Radio. I want people to feel like it is what it is. We have a ton of options and ways for you to kind of branch out in your support. And if you're listening and you're thinking, I don't want to just do a straight donation, I'd like to do something a little more, these are options for you to do that.
Absolutely.
Well, I think we covered it. We did it, Angie.
I think we did. I was very nervous.
Why? We're just talking about buying stuff. I'm a super shopper. I don't know if you've heard, but I'm a super shopper. So
okay.
This segment works for me. I'm telling you. We could do this on boots. We could do this on dishes.
Oh, now, yes.
Oh, yeah. We could.
I love the boots.
Yes.
So.
Yes. You and I, we could do a whole 20 minutes on boots, where to buy them, cutest styles.
Yes.
That's
because see, you're tall like I am. You're actually taller than me a little bit.
How tall are you?
And I thought I'm 5'9".
Oh, yeah. You're the height of my sister. Yeah, that's tall. Yeah.
So, boots is important because you got to get the heel just right.
You got to get the heel because you don't want it super tall because you're tall. But
Absolutely.
You can't have a flat boot. That's just not a boot. So, yeah.
Right. Right. Absolutely.
Angie May, director of AFA Store, afastore.net, to buy anything that you heard us talking about. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Talk to you again soon. We'll be back with more right after this. Get your own show.
I had a conversation with my daughter about making mistakes and not getting this Christian walk right. I had to explain to her that none of us are perfect, but we are all striving for perfection. Then I was listening to a song by 10th Avenue North called You Are More. The song really explained what I shared with her and reminded me that the enemy would like nothing more than to use the mistakes and things you've gotten wrong against you. But because of Christ, you are more than your mistakes. You are more and bigger than your fears. You are so much more than the choices you've made. And God's love for you never wanes. It never decreases. It never ceases to exist. Today, no matter what you've done or how bad you think it is, repent and rest in the forgiveness and love of the Father. Extend to yourself the same passion and grace that the Father extends. With a heart for the urban family, I'm today's urban woman, Tony Johnson. Connect with us at urbanfamilytalk.com.
Hi, this is Steve Tiber with 8 Days of Hope. We've been all over the country helping disaster victims who lose everything.
It's truly a blessing. I really don't have the words to express.
And yet they see a glimmer of hope when a volunteer shows up.
Building the home, that's the second reason we're here. The number one reason is to share the gospel and give them hope.
It's everything that's right in America. I mean, it really represents the best that we have to offer.
That's one of the main reasons for doing it, is being able to be the hands and feet of Jesus and coming out and working with so many wonderful volunteers.
I just feel like it's important in this day and age to teach a child how to serve.
Please go to our website, 8daysofhope.com, and click on Get Involved, submit your email address, and the next time we go anywhere with a disaster, we'll invite you to come along as well.
I love coming in the job room because you can see these pieces of paper. They aren't just a piece of paper. Right. It's a family that's hurting, and it's a gospel opportunity.
You know, I just thank God, for this moment. I mean, I'll be back in my home, and I know it's going to be awesome.
Come love others with 8 Days of Hope.
I'm Chad Pergram with the Speaker's Lobby. It's not unique for a new House majority to change the names of committees and subcommittees. Everyone knows about the spate of inquiries to be led by Judiciary Committee Chairman Jerry Nadler, a quest for the President's tax returns by Ways and Means Committee Chairman Richard Neal. But how about House Foreign Affairs Committee Chairman Elliot Engel? Engel's assembling a panel on oversight and investigations, too. Fox is told there's more interest in investigations than terrorism these days, specifically the Trump administration. The new panel will probe how the administration handled whistleblowers in the diplomatic community. It's not rare to have such oversight panels. The Homeland Security, Natural Resources Committee, Science, Armed Services, Financial Services, and Veterans Affairs Committees all feature oversight subcommittees. What's in a name, asked William Shakespeare. When it comes to the names of committees on Capitol Hill, everything. And to determine the differences and priorities between Democrats and Republicans, look no further than the names of their congressional committees. With the Speaker's Lobby, Chad Pergram, Fox News.
This is Stacy on the Right with Stacy Washington on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk.
The Democrats said they're for border security, but who in America believes that border security would not include some form of a barrier? We know that works. We know there is a crisis on the southern end. You know who else said there was a crisis on the southern end of our border? Barack Obama. Who's voted for fencing? Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, Biden, Nancy Pelosi twice. But now, because it's President Trump, they're allowing their own political bias to enter in this for those extreme levels of the Democratic Party to stop anything from moving. And this is causing real damage.
All right, welcome back to the show. And that was Leader McCarthy talking about border security. And again, this is not it shouldn't be a partisan issue. It's a common sense issue. It's an issue of right and wrong. And in the big scheme of things, we can get fired up about it. I certainly have. We can have really kind of emotional moments where you just think to yourself, you know what? Because you just can't imagine the pain and suffering that people are going through if they've lost a family member, and you just don't, you feel helpless. But we're not helpless. We're Christians. And as Christians, we have not only God's word and the Holy Spirit, but we have access to the Father, where we can pray and beseech him on behalf of our fellow citizens and our government officials, and we have to be doing that. I want to renew our call to be fasting and praying and really to make this something that we're committed to doing. And you know in your heart what you should be fasting, and we want to pray for the border situation and for good leadership in Washington, D.C., and for the nation to acknowledge that the head it's Donald Trump, and that people would respect the authority of the office, as was done when President Obama was in office, and that Christians would pray for those who are placed in authority over them, because we're not supposed to touch God's anointed. You know, there's all this talk about removing people. It wasn't right when it was Barack Obama, and it's not right when it's Donald Trump. And I know that's where I don't understand the offense that I get constantly from people who worship Barack Obama. When I used to talk about how he had a good marriage and seemed to be a good father, although he teaches his children liberalism and leftism, he's present in the home and married to their mom, and they have this intact family unit. And I would say that I greatly respect that. And people would get upset, but it's true. I acknowledge the good along with the bad. There wasn't much good to acknowledge, so I might as well let whatever there was, at least acknowledge it. And the same thing with President Trump. I have been critical of his, marital history, et cetera, et cetera. But every single hero that we have in the Bible, people who did amazing things for God, every one of them had an area in their life where they struggled. And specifically, I always think about King David and how he struggled over and over and over again in the Bible. He was a man after God's own heart. He wrote so many of the Psalms. He really had a lyrical, musical love of our Father in heaven that was unparalleled by any other person who is written about in the Bible. Yet, on the other hand, he made some serious errors, and he had multiple wives, which was, it was the cultural norm back then, but it weakened his ability to govern his children. And it also was a stumbling block in his governance of the nation of Israel through his wives. They were, obviously, it's like a big bag of cats. How crazy is that? And then all the children, and how he didn't really have authority over them, because authority with kids, it's such a tricky mix to get the authority, the love, and the meeting out of discipline just right. And that's when it's just one mom, one dad, and the kids are all from between the two of them in the union. When you start adding in multiple wives and concubines and kids from this one and that one, you can see where he set himself up through all of those wives to have the difficulties that he eventually had with his sons. Yet even through all of that, God used him mightily to fulfill prophecy and to leave us the heritage of the Psalms, which we can use on a daily basis to not only encourage ourselves, but to learn and grow in Christ. So it's fascinating. It's really just like, it's this amazing dichotomy, is it not? And that is why, Barack Obama could have been used to the benefit of this nation had he prayed and asked God, what do I do here? And instead of hewing to leftist ideology, said, I'm going to do what's best for this country. I want the legacy of the first black president to be one of prosperity and unity, et cetera, et cetera. But he chose not to, just as Saul did. Saul had many opportunities in the Bible to repent and come back into right relationship with God to avoid the peril that he eventually experienced, but he did not. And so with Donald Trump, we see, obviously we've never seen him go on television and repent, but we've seen a contrite spirit from him as it relates to a lot of these kind of, it's his past catching up with him in his public life now that he's a politician. But in the face of all of that, he's still the president, and we know that God turns the head of the leader to the left or the right, and so we should be praying to God as opposed to, emailing me and telling me that, Trump is my master. I'm just saying. You got options, and if you want to be effective, emailing me just isn't it, because I laugh at the emails. And I'll tell you, I used to put them on the website, but I felt like that was giving people too much bad attention for sending me vulgar emails. So now what I usually do is I black out the parts that are vulgar, and then I'll read them in a funny voice at dinner, and the kids laugh. So if you're emailing me, you're probably getting laughed at around the dinner table. And you're not changing anything I'm saying on the show, but by all means, email is free and keep doing whatever you want to do. So Richard in Alabama, thank you for joining the show. Hey.
How are you doing? I've just been happy as all get out to listen to you on the radio. I enjoy listening to you. You hit the nail right on the head almost every time I can remember. And, on this wall business, it's really quite simple if people would just think about it. If you got a Democrat or a Rhino Republican, they're against it because they're getting something somewhere, somehow paid off to be against it. Very simple. If they're for it, they're not. They're for the people. And until we get everybody in there who are for it, we're going to have a problem. And they could have done it without the wall, obviously, years ago. But they won't because they're getting paid.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, Richard, you're right. I wish I could argue with you. I wish I could say, no, they're not. They're not getting paid, or, they would never do that. But the fact is you're correct, and that's horrible. I wanted to say thank you for being such a great, supporter of American Family Association, American Family Radio, and for calling the show today. Thank you so much. Diane, thank you for calling the show. What's your comment?
Yes. Just a comment about Trump and why the establishment probably dislikes him so much.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one would be that he used to be a Democrat.
Mm-hmm.
So he's automatically a traitor. Many, many years ago, he was a Democrat.
He was.
And the fact that he can't be bought. Like, he doesn't need them to help him in any way now or in the future when he leaves, like the rest of them. Sure. They come to Washington to get rich.
They also, they have
doesn't need anything they have.
They have a little club, right? And when they go to Washington, they go there and they go in all strong. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And then, you know what, Diane? They get in there and they realize how much money they can make, and they start compromising. And the thing with Donald Trump,
doing what they said.
Yeah. And so then we see Donald Trump, right? Yeah. He comes in there. He already has a helicopter that's nicer than anything any lobbyist can offer him. I think he has 2 or 3 of them. He has a lot of his own toys and buildings all over the world. So he can't, there's nothing they can offer him where he'd be like, ooh, I really want one of those. He's beyond what they can purchase. And you're right. They don't like that. They can't get anything over him. They've already exposed any of his secrets that might be damaging to him, and he still survived because all of us know we're all human and people make mistakes. You make a good point, Diane. We just got to pray for him. We got to pray for him that he would be wise and that he would stay the course.
I'm just glad that their blood pressure is probably through the roof, all of them. They can't sleep at night. They're having to take 2 or 3 blood pressure pills.
Yeah. I love that too. I love them not knowing what they're going to wake up to. Doesn't that, some days I wake up and I'm like, I wonder what President Trump tweeted in the wee hours of the morning and who's raging mad about it. Because they get so upset, everything he says. Thanks for calling the show, Diane. Let's go to Jake in Arkansas. Hey, Jake, thanks for calling.
Good afternoon, Stacy.
Hey.
My question is, can you tell what color I am?
No, I would rather not guess, especially after many, many people have guessed wrong to me and they don't know what color I am. So I'm not going to guess.
Oh, I watch you on Facebook, so I know what color you are.
Okay.
People always get me mixed. People always get me mixed up and they think I'm white. And after they meet me, they say, you're not the guy I was talking to.
Me too. That happens to me too. When I call a store and I say, do you have so-and-so? And they'll say, yes. I'll say, would you put one aside for me? My name's Stacy. And then when I come in to get it, they're like, you were Stacy? I'm like, yes, it's me. Can't you hear my voice? It's me. I'm going to pick that up. It happens to me too.
Yeah, I'm on another comment I want to make. Where I live is basically white people, and I put shoes on horses. I am a blacksmith, and I went to do shoes for this guy. And after I got there, he wouldn't let me do it because he thought I was white on the phone. And I'd like to know one more thing. What happened to Hillary Clinton? She done disappeared somewhere. She's not even surfacing at all.
Well, I mean, she comes out when it's beneficial to her power structure. And I think, one thing we can do is we just keep pressure on our legislators that they shouldn't give up. They've already subpoenaed a bunch of people to come in and testify about the email investigation and the dereliction of duty. It's possible for her to still be brought to justice on the things that she did while she was in office. And there's a reason why she's quiet right now, probably working on something dastardly. Or maybe she's just taking a break, which I'm glad. I'm glad we're not listening to her right now. Thank you, Jake, for calling the show. I would just say, he mentioned the whole showing up to do a job and people not wanting, sometimes things happen and we get offended, and obviously we have every right to feel offended, but we have to remember that people are sometimes disappointing. Sometimes it's about race. Sometimes it's about your socioeconomic status. Sometimes it's about having a Southern accent or not having a Southern accent. Sometimes it's about your political affiliation. But God calls us to forgive and keep it moving. And it's hard to do. I'm over here with, my finger in the air. I need just as much help as anybody else. But we can still prosper and make it in America. We do live in a meritocracy. And I want to leave on that note. I don't want to leave on a negative note. And mainly because, if there's anything that you're getting from this show, and this next statement is for people who are listening, who are enjoying the program. If you're getting anything, I want you to be encouraged. I want you to have the information and the truth, but I also want you to be encouraged because God doesn't have space in his word for us to be discouraged. His word is actually an encouragement to us. It's life and health to our bones, and God is the lifter of our head. He actually helps us to stay up and even-keeled and be able to withstand all of the slings and arrows of the enemy and the circumstances that get thrown at us because we live in a fallen world. And so as disappointing as people can be, but God, we have so many opportunities to allow him to show himself strong in us and to make path straight, to make a way where there's no way, to not just bring us along, but to help us bring others along so that we can all be on that path and all be experiencing the fullness of the joy that is the knowledge of Jesus Christ. And so if there's anything I want you to get, haters, non-haters, it doesn't matter. If you have ears to hear, then you should hear that Jesus Christ is for you. He loves you. He died on the cross to save you. He took every sin, the weight of every sin of every human being that has ever lived and ever will live, and he experienced the absolute judgment for that sin, all of the sin himself. And in doing so, he freed us up to walk in grace and mercies that are new every morning in communion with him, to be able to kind of be, it's a carefree life, the Christian life, because no matter what happens here, we know we have eternity with the heavenly created bodies, no wrinkles, we won't be fat, no imperfections. We won't need to sleep, we won't need food, and we'll be eternally in the presence of God. We'll actually understand everything. We won't have any wonders or frets or any of that stuff. The utopia that some people seek to bring about here on this earth through political means that can never work, that actually exists for us on the other side of this life if we give our lives to Jesus Christ. So what are you waiting for? It's an opportunity, and it's up to you to take it. So I hope that you will. We have, let me see here, we do not have enough time, I don't think, to listen to another bit of audio. I have some more for you. There's a 19-year-old West Virginia delegate who's introduced a bill that sends $10 million to help fund the border wall. When I mentioned that I reached out to Steve King's office to see if I could get an interview with him, all of their call lines are, the voicemail boxes are full. I had someone connect me up with his comms director, but I haven't seen anything for that. So obviously that won't be today, but I am going to continue to work. I want to give Congressman Steve King an opportunity to come on the program and talk about what's happened to him, because I sincerely believe that the cudgel of race is being used to destroy yet another strong conservative individual who refused to serve the whims of the establishment. And that's why they're so happy to see him go. We can't stand for that. So if you're leaving us now, God bless you from the heartland. If you're sticking around, you have onenewsnow.com, news and information up next. Then me. Be right back.
Urban Family Talk.
Hey, I'm Miki, co-host of Aaron the Addisons on Urban Family Talk. I want to invite you to be part of our online chat community we've affectionately called The Churban. While you listen to your favorite programs, you have the opportunity to communicate in real time with the hosts of those programs and other Urban Family listeners. Find out what the talk is all about. Become a Churbanite at urbanfamilytalk.com.
Truth, wisdom, Empowered Urban Family Talk, a ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh. Rank and file lawmakers are trying to gather support to end the now 26-day-old partial government shutdown. Jared Halpern has the latest.
A bipartisan group of senators is urging President Trump to support a short-term spending bill of just 3 weeks to give Congress time to develop and vote on border security funding. The effort is being led by South Carolina Republican Lindsey Graham and Delaware Democrat Chris Coons. Both are gathering signatures from fellow senators. President Trump told reporters this week he had rejected a similar proposal from Graham and so far has not signaled support for any bill to fully reopen the government without border wall funding. On Capitol Hill, Jared Halpern, Fox News.
A trio of Republican senators has introduced a bill to prohibit taxpayer-funded abortions. Senator Roger Wicker is part of the group, and he tells Washington Watch that 40 senators have signed on to the effort.
Senator McConnell, the leader, is getting together to at least make sure that we will have a vote on this, hopefully to coincide with the March for Life. I think we're winning this argument year by year, step by step. And, you know, for many of us, the realization came early on in this process, right after Roe versus Wade, that this was just an outrage. And certainly it goes beyond the pale to take your tax dollar and my tax dollar and spend it on something that we are so adamantly opposed to.
Senators Pat Roberts of Kansas, James Langford of Oklahoma also introduced the bill with Senator Wicker. The March for Life is this Friday in Washington. A California pastor has lost his church after the congregation ran him out of town after he stood for biblical truth. Steve Jordahl reports.
Pastor Justin Hoke had a straightforward and blunt message for the Northern California community of Wairika. The message board outside his church read, "Bruce Jenner is still a man. Homosexuality is still a sin. The culture may change. The Bible does not." Gay activists quickly gathered to protest the message, but Hoke was undeterred. This was from his sermon of January 6th.
We've not been left here, beloved, to hide our light under a basket, to hide our light under a bed. Love warns. It is hatred, it is selfishness which conceals truth.
It turned out to be his last sermon at Trinity Bible Presbyterian Church. He wrote that the other church elder felt he could no longer follow Hoke's leadership and that all but one couple in the church would quit if he remained in the pulpit. Dr. Richard Land of Southern Evangelical Seminary says it's a sick church.
Evidently, he took a very strong and uncompromising stance on the issue of gender identity and transgenderism and homosexuality, and discovered that his church had been seduced by the neo-pagan culture of California.
Trinity Bible is hardly the first church to face the issue. Biblical sexuality has tripped up entire denominations.
The whole homosexuality, transgender issue is like truth serum for the church. Either you're going to take a biblical stance or you're going to take the culture stance.
I'm Steve Jordahl.
An American retail icon gets a lifeline out of bankruptcy. Carmen Roberts reports.
Sears gets another chance at life. Reuters reports sources close to the bankruptcy negotiations say a $5.2 billion bid from Sears chairman and hedge fund manager Eddie Lampert won out against proposals from liquidators. They wanted the 126-year-old department store chain to close, sell its assets, and lay off tens of thousands of workers. The agreement coming early this morning after days of private negotiations. The bankruptcy judge must still approve the deal. Carmen Roberts, Fox News.
The teacher strike in Los Angeles is now on day 3, the first one in 3 decades. The teachers union wants more staffing and pay increases. Teachers walked off the job Monday in protest. Schools are still open with substitute teachers, but some students like this boy say there is a noticeable difference.
It's not the same with the teachers being on strike.
American Family News is online at onenewsnow.com and download the One News Now mobile app for your Apple or Android device. I'm Rusty Pugh.
Before I came to Teen Challenge, I felt that I was in a dark pit, so I just kept drinking. Jesus Christ was that spark of hope. This is where my addiction stops, and this is where healing starts for me. If you or a loved one are struggling with addiction, Adult to Teen Challenge can help. There are centers across the country, and you can find the one nearest you at 855-END-ADDICTION or at TeenChallengeUSA.com. This is Urban Family Talk.
She's sharp, pointed, and insightful. This is Stacy on the Right on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk.
I would hope our Democratic colleagues will reverse course and work seriously with this White House to reach an agreement that can become law and fulfill our promises to our country.
The longer Leader McConnell allows this to continue, the more he and Republican senators will be tied to the president and the president's disgraceful tactic of government by extortion.
We can't continue kicking this down the road. We can't continue to ignore it. We know that there is a crisis at the border. American lives are at stake, and the president wants to do what his constitutional duty is to protect those. And I find it just appalling that Democrats are unwilling to do anything to fix this problem, work with the president, and open the government.
And now, Stacy Washington.
I'm back again, hour 2. Still alive. Yeah, I just get such a kick out of, and I know maybe y'all should pray for me, I don't know, but I kind of get a kick out of how upset people get. Because I can tell you how many times I've listened to the radio or watched a television show and just been like, what did I just listen to? And then it's really interesting what happens. I turn it off or switch to something else, and then I go on about my life. I don't email anybody. I don't do any of that stuff because I'm pretty sure the person is, firm in what they're doing, and me emailing them once isn't going to change anything. But it's still interesting to see the reaction. So, anyways, it's good to be here. I want to first start off with this bit of audio that we just had so much going on last hour, and it was a real pleasure to speak to Angie May, director of AFA Store. I just love the people who work for American Family Association so much. My first visit to the building, I actually had our daughter with us. She was a senior that year, and she was homeschooling. And I was like, I got to go on this road trip. And she was like, road trip? I'm in. And so she came with me. And, she's a teenager. It couldn't have been super exciting, like some of the parts where she was just kind of sitting around doing her homework while I was on the radio and talking to people and all that. But she had such a good time, and the people were just so great. We met so many wonderful people who work for American Family Association and American Family Radio, and I've told people before, and it's the thing I say most often to people in our personal life when they ask me, what are the people like that you work with? Like, what are they like? And some of that comes from the knowledge that, radio can be really cutthroat and people can be people. I'm not going to say they're going to be mean or they're horrible or anything. People can be people. And especially when they're competing and they're working in an industry where, in radio, a lot of people, you never know if you're going to be working from week to week because it's so tenuous with some stations and some conglomerates and the way that they run. And I know this firsthand because I have filled in for so many different national hosts and local hosts across the country from their studios, from different places, remoting in, all of that. And I know that they're great people working all over. There really are. And I've worked with some fantastic people, but I've just not encountered the kind of mix that is at American Family Radio. The people, it is unique. The people there that work there, it's not typical radio. And I have to believe that has something to do with the fact that the people who are working there are Christians and they're Bible believing, God fearing, they're seeking to have a close relationship with God. It has to be some of that, because otherwise it's like a freak of nature. Usually that many nice people aren't concentrated in one area. You usually get 1 or 2 nice people for every, 50. I'm just being real with you. And the ratio is much higher there. I didn't meet anybody that I thought, oh, that person. Everybody was just so open and kind and really just the sweetest people. It was really nice to be there. And it's the same thing just working remotely. It's the same thing. So I I encourage you to support afastore.net and support the ministry in whatever way you feel led. We appreciate you. And we are now going to listen to, well, first of all, I want to tell you, Angela Morabito of the Washington Examiner is going to join us to talk about the shutdown. That'll be next segment. And we're going to kind of weave in and out of some of the comments by newly elected Democrats and returning senior Democrats on the committees that they're chairing and what they plan to do, namely the House Homeland Security Chair. He had some comments about ICE. And we have a little bit of audio from President Trump talking about the human traffickers and why they choose to come through the open patches of border, even though it's the most dangerous place to cross. And he makes an interesting point. But first, this 19-year-old West Virginia delegate has introduced a bill into the West Virginia House that sends $10 million to help fund the border wall. Now, this is a fascinating concept, states contributing to the pot to try to get the border wall built, as opposed to relying only on the federal government, which uses the tax dollars that they collect from the states, obviously. But it's an interesting proposition. It's number 4.
A proposal from 3 lawmakers is already gaining national attention. A bill that proposes taking $10 million from West Virginia's $200 million surplus to help fund the wall along the southern U.S. border.
This is one thing that I think is crucial right now.
Delegate Caleb Hanna is one of 3 Republican delegates that has introduced the bill, which is in the process of being drafted.
The West Virginia Republican majority in the House has been very supportive of President Trump and his efforts to secure the southern border. So I am happy to co-sponsor a piece of legislation that I don't think just West Virginia will be happy about, but the American people as a whole. So I'm working together with delegates Robbie and Patrick Martin, Robbie taking the lead, and we want to take $10 million of West Virginia's $200 million surplus and give it directly to the southern border to help build the wall. West Virginia isn't on the border, but it does affect us. I mean, I've spoken to local and state law enforcement, and they have told us the drugs that they're seeing are so pure that they possibly can't be coming from anywhere other than Mexico. So I believe that the wall is a crucial part in addressing West Virginia's drug problem.
Oh, my goodness. The drugs are so pure. These people make their living hooking American teenagers and young adults and anybody who will put something in their body on these drugs, hardcore illicit narcotics, traveling over the southern border and destroying American lives and earning billions of dollars for the different drug cartels. I mean, is there any justification that one can come up with for helping to keep that going on? Funding lawlessness and the destruction of American lives. Who can justify that? So speaking of lawlessness, this is President Trump. He's talking about human traffickers with bound and gagged women and why they don't enter through the checkpoints. And again, listen to what he's saying. Whether you like the president or not, we're looking for the substance of what he's talking. What is he saying out of his mouth? What are the words? People keep saying, the news organizations, well, he lies 18 times a day. Okay, everybody's got to have something that, like babies need pacifiers and some people need the Kool-Aid, whatever you got to do to get through your day. But listen to what the man is saying. It's number 3.
Human traffickers, you think of that as an ancient crime. It's not an ancient crime. It's more prevalent today in this world, far beyond the United States. It's a world crime given to us very much by the internet and bad people. The internet has made things in many ways better, in many ways much worse, but human trafficking, grabbing women in particular, and children, but women, taping them up, wrapping tape around their mouths so they can't shout or scream, tying up their hands behind their back and even their legs and putting them in the backseat of a car or a van, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 at a time. They don't go through checkpoints. They go through areas that don't have a wall or don't have a steel barrier. They go up to the checkpoint, and before they get to it, they make a right or a left, depending on where they are. And they go out into the desert or out into the land, and they find the first area that doesn't have anything blocking its way. And they have mini highways all over the place. You can see it all over the place, and it's not good. And the only way you're going to stop it, the only way to stop without question, is with a very powerful wall or steel barrier.
So did you hear what he said about these women being kidnapped and brought into the country? I mean, I feel gutted that this is happening to women. And this is where, you know, you separate the adults from, and this is an insult to children, so the adults from the nincompoops, because I'm not going to compare people whose minds don't actually compute truth to sweet, innocent children who are going to grow up to do something awesome with their lives. People who cannot understand that helping this to occur, allowing it to occur, knowing that it's happening, you're condoning it. You're saying you're fine with women being kidnapped and taped up. And here's the cake taker. I talked about this story, the remains of 127 dead migrants recovered in southern Arizona in the year 2018. Well, where do you think these remains are coming from? Some of them are crossing over by foot and dying of heat exhaustion, but some of these bodies are dumped because as they bring them up this long trek and bring them over this bumpy terrain and all that, and they're piled in this hot car with no air conditioning in the trunk, some of them die. And when they realize there's someone dead in the trunk, it's not like they get out and say, you know what, we need to contact a mortuary here and get a proper burial for this person we were going to traffic into the sex trade in America. No, they dump the body in the desert. And then the remains are found by researchers. On the weekend before Christmas, a group of volunteers set out to search for the remains of dead migrants on the Barry Goldwater Air Force Range, a remote desert area in southwestern Arizona where military jets from bases in Arizona conduct live bombing exercises. The volunteers from the nonprofit group Aguilas del Desierto recovered the skeletal remains of 8 migrants over the span of 2 days. They posted pictures of some of the remains on the Facebook page, and the photos are reminders that high numbers of migrants continue to die annually after crossing the border illegally. Here's what they have. In 2018, it was 127. 128 remains were recovered in 2017. And over the past 10-year span, that number has ratcheted up. Back in the early 2000s, they would not find more than, 1 or 2 bodies, a year. Then that number jumped up to 55. And since 2010, it has consistently been in the well over 100 range of dead bodies that they find in the desert there of people who tried to get into the country. Now, they either tried to get in on their own or they were smuggled in and died in the course of the travel and were dumped. I mean, how can you justify that? So you got that, and I want to make sure not to leave off of this segment before I just quickly touch on. We'll get to the audio of Senator Ted Cruz talking about the wall and El Chapo, but this just in. Nancy Pelosi, so you might have heard earlier today on the news that Nancy Pelosi said due to the fact that the U.S. Secret Service and the Department of Homeland Security are a part of the 25% of the government that is shut down, she cannot ensure adequate security, the hundreds of individuals who make the State of the Union possible, and so she wants the president not to come. He can submit a written State of the Union. Now, I mentioned in hour one why this is a bad situation for her, because the president will have the bully pulpit for over an hour. Every network will be tuned into him. He'll be on C-SPAN, and this is not what she wants. She doesn't want him to control messaging for that length of time and create audio that all of us radio hosts will chomp at the bit to get and play for you the next day, because you'll miss it, because most regular people aren't going to listen to the State of the Union. I'm just telling you. People who have lives. This is my job. So here's where the rubber meets the road. Multiple reports indicate that the U.S. Secret Service and DHS are rejecting House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's stated reason. Here's what they've said. Secret Service is fully ready to offer full protection during SOTU. They told Pete Williams of NBC, hardly a conservative, this is a no-fail mission. Though United States Secret Service personnel are not being paid, the intelligence and protection functions are fully staffed. Second tweet, we've been planning for this for months, as we always do. This planning for State of the Union didn't start 29 days ago. Elizabeth Landers says that a senior DHS official told her that Speaker Pelosi's claim regarding security concerns surrounding the State of the Union during a shutdown has zero credibility. It is a serious event, but one we can handle. Additionally, Fox News is skeptical. Fox News' John Roberts says DHS official told him that no one from Pelosi's office actually called the Secret Service to ask if they had concerns about State of the Union before she sent the letter. She just doesn't want him to have the bully pulpit. I am asking you, President Trump, I don't know if you listen to the show, but if you do, welcome into AFR, Urban Family Talk. Do the State of the Union. Tell the American people why we need that wall. When we get back, we're going to have Angela Morabito with us. Stay there.
Are you still stuck on the healthcare roller coaster? Still paying those high premiums? And strapped into huge deductibles? Not knowing what's around the next turn? Well, then let me tell you about a sound, sensible healthcare choice that really is affordable. It's MediShare, the healthcare sharing solution people like you have been trusting in for more than 25 years. MediShare members report saving around $500 a month on their healthcare costs, and they never pay for things they don't believe in. Time to say goodbye to that healthcare roller coaster and say hello to MediShare.
Call *345 to find out how much you can save on your healthcare. MediShare. Call *345. Message and data rates may apply. That's *345.
This is Viewpoints with Kirby Anderson.
Philip Yancey starts with an admission. I am going through a personal crisis. He explains that he used to love reading. In fact, he understands that books help define who I am. But that is his past, not his present. He has discovered that the internet and social media have trained his brain to read a paragraph or two and then start looking around. When he's reading an article online, pretty soon he's looking at the slide bar to see how long the article might be. He starts clicking on the links and sidebars. Soon he has lost interest in the original article. We shouldn't be surprised by any of this. 7 years ago, I was quoting from an article by Nicholas Carr. Since then, he has written a book that I reference every time I speak on the subject of media or digital devices. His book, The Shallows, What the Internet is Doing to Our Brains, explains why we don't read as much and why it's so hard to concentrate. The Internet and social media are retraining our brains. He said, once I was a scuba diver in the sea of words. Now I zip along the surface like a guy on a jet ski. Philip Yancey quotes from an article in Business Insider that studied pioneers like Elon Musk, Oprah Winfrey, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, and Mark Zuckerberg. Most of them have a common practice known as the 5-hour rule. They set aside at least an hour a day, or 5 hours a week, for deliberate learning. The people listed in the Business Insider article probably read as many books in a week or two than most Americans read in a year. Philip Yancey acknowledges that we are engaged in a war and technology wields the heavy weapons. He is trying to develop what he calls a fortress of habit so that he can resurrect the rich nourishment that reading has long provided. I recommend that you do the same for your benefit and the benefit of your family. I'm Kirby Anderson, and that's my point of view.
For more information about issues covered on Viewpoints, visit pointofview.net. Pointofview.net.
You can watch a live stream of the show on Facebook or YouTube at Stacy on the Right. Now, back to the show on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk.
So, while we are working on getting the guest, we will I want to listen to this audio from Ted Cruz talking about the El Chapo Act. So you guys remember me mentioning that here on the show on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk, urbanfamilytalk.com. You can find everything that we do on Facebook and YouTube, et cetera, et cetera. But the most important place for you to follow is on our individual websites, urbanfamilytalk.com, afa.net, and stacyontheright.com. And thank you so much for being here today. And I hope you're just, well, first of all, I hope your weather's better than it is here in the Midwest. But if it isn't, I hope you're still enjoying the day. I actually found a recipe, totally off topic. I found this recipe for chicken dumpling soup on Instagram. And so I have all of my fixings ready, and I'm going to be working on that as soon as I'm done with the show today. I'm going into the kitchen, and I'm going to put this soup together and make it for the first time. And I'm freezing some for our college student because she's going to come home in, I think, a week or so. And so she was like, "You're making what? I can't believe I'm not going to be there." And I was like, well, I'm saving some. I'm putting some in the freezer for her. So anyway, that's going to be pretty exciting. Right now, let's listen to, so I clipped part of it. If you want to see the whole thing, I'm going to have to direct you over to our Facebook page. That's where I throw the links up for things that we listen to during the show and things that I think are super important, that I want to share. I either put them on Twitter or on the Facebook page or both. And if you're not one of those people who's on those mediums, that's fine. That's why we have the audio on the show. So there's some way for me to get it to you no matter what. So let's listen to, let me see here. It's number 5.
Now, where did this idea come from? Well, it came from actually press reports some time ago that said the total value of El Chapo's global criminal net worth was $14 billion. That's a whole lot of money. At the same time, I saw articles that said the cost to build a wall along the entire border was between $14 and $20 billion. Now, there's a natural and elegant symmetry there. What the El Chapo Act does is real simple. It takes the money, the billions that El Chapo made crossing the border illegally, and it takes that $14 billion and it uses it to pay for the wall. And the end result is we have the wall and we have an essential element to secure the border. And critically, not one penny comes from the U.S. taxpayers. We ought to take this up. This is common sense legislation, but I'm going to make a prediction right now. The Democrats aren't even willing to spend El Chapo's money to build the wall because politically they don't want to secure the border. That's not reasonable. That's not listening to the American people, and it's not what we need to do. But this is an easy solution to solve the problem.
What's not to love about that? So obviously, when I say that, I'm coming from the perspective of someone who honestly believes that when President Trump talked about Mexico funding the wall, there are so many alternative mechanisms. And I don't know, and at no point did I believe that he meant that Mexico was going to actually write us a check for it. Although, to be honest with you, with the way things stand with our businesses there, the way the lay of the land is situated, let's put it that way. We have all the cards. If we wanted them to pay for it, if we wanted them to stop it, if we really put our foot down, we could get them to stop doing it. And I know that, so that's speaking from the perspective of, you negotiate with someone and you get them to behave, and they have to be honorable, at least to some degree, to be forced into it. And the Mexican government is not honorable. If they were, they could run their country and, actually maintain a government that would keep people from traveling through their country illegally and keep their own citizens there. They could bring about some wealth and prosperity that would be attractive for the citizens there to be able to stay instead of coming here and transmitting the wealth from America down to their country. But they don't. But I still think that, every time someone comes up with one of these fantastic ideas, like the one that we just heard, it just points to the fact that there's yet another opportunity. Okay. All right. There's yet another opportunity for us to get this done. And we can get it done. I just got a text message from associate producer saying that the guest will be ready in a few minutes. So we will try her again in a couple of minutes, perhaps to get her on for about 10 minutes here during this segment. Now, more loss of American lives, and this is tied into, and obviously this is enraging, and I am one of those people who I believe that when you take the oath and you say, I will support the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, so help me God, and you swear to do that, you're saying wherever the president, commander-in-chief, and any of his leadership say to go, you're going to get your mobility bag and you're going to go. You're going to board that C5 or whatever they're telling, C-130, you're going to get on it and you're going to go. And when they give you orders, you're going to kill who they tell you to kill. You're going to tear down what they tell you to tear down. You're going to break stuff in the name of the U.S. government, and you're going to go home. And you're going to do it to the best of your ability. Your training, you're going to utilize your training and your resources, and you're going to do it. I believe that. That's what I believe when I went in the service, and so many other millions of Americans believe it. But it is enraging when we see this just ridiculousness, some kind of terror attack. We have our U.S. U.S.-led coalition announcing that an undisclosed number of U.S. troops were killed on routine patrol in Syria. They're still gathering information and will share additional details at a later time. And this is after President Trump said he was going to bring those 2,000 troops home. Obviously, they were killed in the course of executing their duties, and we mourn their lives, and we want to offer comfort and aid to their family members, the surviving spouses, children, etc. But do we really need to be there? Obviously, we've had guests on who've said yes. I tend to agree with the president that we should draw down. We'll see what they end up doing. Right now, it's my pleasure to welcome Angela Morabito. She's a contributor to the Washington Examiner. Angela, thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Stacey. Thanks for having me on the show.
Thank you for coming on. So I know that you contribute to the Washington Examiner, but Demetrius did not send me a link, and he said we're possibly talking about the shutdown. Are we on the same page?
Yep, that's perfect.
Okay, so latest story for today about the shutdown is that Nancy Pelosi has basically uninvited the president from the State of the Union. And she says it's because security concerns, parts of the government that are shut down, namely the U.S. Secret Service, Department of Homeland Security, will be unable to provide the support needed for him to have all of the congressional members in the same building, et cetera, et cetera. Those agencies have since issued statements to news media, NBC, et cetera, Fox News, that's just simply not true. They've been preparing for months and they're ready to go. Why wouldn't she want the president to give the State of the Union during the shutdown?
This is a very odd strategy that Pelosi is taking, because if we know one thing about President Trump, it's that he's not afraid to talk directly to the American people. I think she's just trying to make a little bit of an ego play and say we're going to rob you of an audience with Congress as a sign of a lack of trust and respect should he continue the shutdown. Now, Pelosi and congressional Democrats they know exactly what they need to do to get the government reopened. They're just refusing to do it. And the Secretary of Homeland Security, Kirstjen Nielsen, came out today and said that you're right, they have been preparing for months. Everything is in place for the annual State of the Union address, and it's not a security concern. She really called Pelosi's bluff.
So what's the over-under here? Neither you or I believe in crystal balls or telling the future, but if we're just talking this thing over, Angela, and kind of turning it over in our minds, do you see President Trump actually yielding to Nancy Pelosi and not doing the State of the Union?
I cannot imagine a scenario in which that would happen. I could very well see Trump giving the State of the Union from the White House.
Oh.
I don't think he's going to miss out on this opportunity to speak directly to Americans at an event that people, because of its long history and tradition, do come to trust as a significant annual marker of how any presidency, any administration is going at that time.
So let's speculate a little more. I'm liking this. So Angela, next question. You've got the last time he did something, he had this Oval Office address. It was like less than 2 weeks ago. It was last week, I guess. And they demanded equal time, like it was a State of the Union, so that they could rebut his comments. And they ended up being widely mocked because they were sharing a podium, and their height difference and Schumer's face, like the way he was holding his face, it just made for this comical meme factory that went into overdrive, and there was a lot of mockery. So is she afraid of that, or is she afraid of the president actually sounding presidential and making a case that she can't rebut in their response? Because they're going to get a response if they do the State of the Union.
Right. It honestly seems like she's doing this out of spite. There's nothing that stops Trump from getting in front of a camera. He likes cameras, and cameras like him. You look at all the free press coverage he got during the primary and how that really propelled him before he ever held public office. I don't think that Pelosi, well, let's put it this way. If Nancy Pelosi thinks she can take attention off of Trump, she has no idea how Trump works. State of the Union rebuttals, very few of them are memorable. Marco Rubio gave a pretty great one during the Obama years. But what do people remember? They remember him drinking water. Yeah. Last year's rebuttal wasn't anything to write home about. It's just a different set of policies that, what has Representative Joe Kennedy done since then? Nobody really knows. So the rebuttal isn't as powerful as they would like it to be.
So continuing on down speculation lane. The president gives an epic, because the other thing that I think she's wanting to avoid is you'll have the newly elected Democrats, the hijab wearers included, and they'll be on one side scowling and wearing colorful clothing. And then you'll have the Republicans on the other side looking very stately in their dark clothing. You'll have the Supreme Court without Ruth Bader Ginsburg because she's ill, and we wish her the best and hope that she's going to recover quickly and fully. But it's not likely that she'll be there. And so then, you have those two images juxtaposed against President Trump, who will include a fiery presentation on why it is so important to build a wall and why it should be funded and why the Democrats are being hypocrites on this. I can't see her rebuttal withstanding the onslaught of that imagery that I've just laid out. And I haven't even included all the people the president will invite, parents whose children have been killed by illegal aliens and so on and so forth. It's going to be a pretty interesting spectacle. That's what she's trying to prevent.
Yeah, I mean, Trump is very smart with how he highlights the human factor of the border shutdown. The border security issue. Mm-hmm. People might think, well, on the whole, this is, harmful to people who are trying to seek a better life for themselves. The real harm happens when people are making a very, very dangerous trek to break the law to get into this country, and their lives don't necessarily get much safer when they're here. It speaks to American greatness that crossing the border motivates people to literally risk their own lives and the lives of their children to get here. If a border wall can stop people from taking that mortal risk, I think it could be a humanitarian thing. Trump has been very, very smart when he took over the White House press briefing with members of the Border Patrol who said, we need a wall. This is how it works. We can't do our jobs without it. That imagery was so powerful, and you can tell because it made every Democrat angry. They don't have a rebuttal to that. There's no opposition. There's no opposing counterpart politically to the guys who patrol the border every day and see the danger that people go through, at that part of the country. They have no comeback to that, and Nancy Pelosi has to know that. So, at the end of all this, it shouldn't be surprising that she's very nervous about Trump addressing the nation.
You make some excellent points there, and I just want to highlight a story. We were just talking about this, and I just found this. A good friend of mine she shoots me stories on direct message, shot this over to me just a little bit ago. The remains of 127 dead migrants recovered in the southern Arizona area known as Barry Goldwater Air Force Range, and that every year they recover between 150 bodies, the remains. And when I say remains, we're talking about bones and stuff because it's desert, and so there's really not much left once the person dies. This is going on. You also have the president explaining the human traffickers, what they do. They kidnap women and girls and children. They bring them into the country in the trunks of cars. I mean, it's brutal. I could see the president talking about that during the State of the Union, and most Americans really, your stomach is turning, you're horrified, you don't want to be on that side that justifies that kind of thing going on. And as much as you may have a heart for people who just want to live here, you realize there's a better way when the president lays that out. I mean, do you think that's what he's gearing up to? Because I keep hearing these snippets from him that are just, it's the worst stuff you're going to hear unless you're watching one of these dystopian movies. But this is no movie. It's real.
Exactly. I think very few people understand the reality of what goes on at the border. People tend to have this really juvenile image of a sort of like kids playing tag, but in the desert, and they're trying not to get tagged by the Border Patrol because if you get caught, you lose the game. That is such a reductive and naive way to think of the American border. You're exactly right, and Trump would be right to point it out, that this is a place where people die. This is a site of mass atrocities. It's also interesting the timing of the State of the Union happens near the Super Bowl every year.
So Angela, we are up against the break here, and I want to say thanks for joining us today. We are going to be back with more right after these messages. Keep it here. This is Just a Minute with Stacey Washington. In 1 Samuel 21, we see David fleeing from King Saul. David uses every trick in the book to preserve his own life, from eating the priest's holy showbread to lying about why he is in the vicinity. At one point, David pretends to be insane, thinking that doing so will prevent angry servants from killing him. Emulating these deceptions are not the point of David's story. Being in fear for his life made him do things he would not normally do. But the story doesn't end there. David wrote Psalm 34 during this difficult time, singing, "I will bless the Lord at all times. His praise shall continually be in my mouth." This is a beautiful way of describing the true nature of walking with God. In the low times, when all have forsaken you, continue to bless the Lord. I'm Stacey Washington. Find out more at StaceyOnTheRight.com.
Abraham Hamilton III.
God put us in this world at this time to be salt and light. We don't fold because of the darkness that we're facing. This is not the first time in the world's history that it's gotten dark. God has called you and I to be his ambassadors, even in this dark moment.
Tune in to the Hamilton Quarter, weekdays at 5 p.m. Central on Urban Family Talk.
The church has to take the lead in ensuring that men are properly trained for fatherhood. We have an epidemic in which boys are not growing up with their fathers. So as Christian men, we have to stand in the gap and make up the hedge so that our communities are not destroyed. When we see fatherhood as a blessing and not an inconvenience, we will see children as spiritual weapons in our arsenal. Blessed is the man whose quiver is full of them. Join us in the battle to strengthen fatherhood. UrbanFamilyTalk.com.
I'm Hank Weinblum with your word of the week. New rhetoric injected into the debate over the border wall and the government shutdown.
If we go back and everything's peachy-dory and you say, we'll talk.
Things are not hunky-keen with that sentence.
Everything's peachy-dory.
It's not the first time the president has said peachy-dory. He used it to describe the situation before the 2016 presidential debate. Peachy-dory is a blending of two older terms, both meaning something's great, just fine, or at least acceptable.
Everything has been just hunky-dory.
Hunky-dory originated in 19th century New York, not originally related to someone considered hot-looking. Peachy keen became popular in the 1940s and was also used in 2016.
I'm not telling you that everything is just peachy keen.
Combine hunky-dory and peachy keen.
Everything's peachy-dory.
Does that mean something is double okie dokie? Is it super-duper times two? Neato Speedo. With your word of the week, Hank Weinblum, Fox News.
Welcome back to Stacey on the Right on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk.
Well, you know, I've been a supporter of ICE. They do a job, but just like any operation, we can review what they do. And if we need to tweak it, I'm committed to doing that. There has been some question about ICE's interior enforcement role. We need to look at that. As you know, we share jurisdiction of ICE with the Committee on Judiciary. So in some instances, we'll probably have to have joint hearings. But I don't think there's any issue that we won't look at to see if we can improve it.
Will you bring an abolish ICE bill through your committee?
No.
So you're not going to catch any Democrats talking about, not any establishment Democrats who value their constituencies, talking about eliminating government agencies. That's not their side of the aisle. So when Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez makes these statements about abolishing ICE and others get to chanting with her at these rallies and whatnot, they're not they're not really thinking through their position. The Democrats don't abolish agencies. They just fix them. You heard him. Then we'll just fix it. We'll just stop them from doing their jobs and give them other jobs to do. Other jobs that have nothing to do with the Constitution, but we can't let people go. We can't let people not have their jobs. So quick shout out to Nikisha James, who is currently cranking out 70 push-ups on Facebook while listening to the show. That's pretty awesome. She posted a video and I wanted to give her a shout out she's the fittest mom of teenagers I've ever seen. And so you can check her out on Facebook too. She has a really wonderful page called Fit for Life Sisters, and it's so cool the way they work out and they just keep you motivated. I also want to just point out super quick that one of the things that is so interesting about this whole scenario with the shutdown is that it's not working the way the Democrats thought it would. They thought it would be a cakewalk. They control the media. They should have President Trump down negotiating for the opportunity to just keep the government open and give the Democrats money. But instead, he's staying the course, and they're not sure how to take it. And I also thought it was pretty interesting that the word of the week was hunky-dory, and that he was talking about peachy-dory, which is what the president says. He really has his own mode of communication. And I think it's fascinating. Now, I want to pivot over to a subject we've touched on before here on the program, but this is a cultural type of a topic, and it's just such a hot button. I'm on reformationcharlotte.org, and the article here is called "The Problem with Celebrity Christian Music is that it takes the glory from God." And in this piece, the article, the author, he goes through all of this. Well, first of all, here's the thesis that he's proposing. He talks about Lauren Daigle and other artists who are modern Christian pop culture singers, and says that these people are they're taking the glory from God because they're trying to climb the music charts and they're trying to make their music famous when they should be bringing people to Christ. And I full disclosure, I have Lauren Daigle. I downloaded her songs onto my phone, and I like listening to her music, and also the music of other Christian artists, and even a little bit of Christian rap, which sometimes the kids have said, "Oh, have you heard this song?" And it's such a better alternative than the other secular music, which we do listen to secular music as well. And so it's an interesting article, so I want to share a little bit of it with you here in the last segment of the show. So he talks about hearing about the artists, hearing about what they're doing, how many followers they have, what kind of good deeds they've been up to, but we don't hear about the glory of God. He talks about Lauren Daigle and what is she doing to bring glory to God and to bring people to salvation. Now, you could say you listen to her music and you're inspired, but her music is just the right mix of singing about God, but not actually saying God or Jesus. She does sometimes say God, so it's not that she doesn't ever utter God, but she does have it in such a way that it's not offensive as, say, like, at the cross. Imagine being at your grocery store or Home Goods or someplace, Sears, and hearing "At the Cross," the hymn. You just wouldn't. In fact, what I'm noticing is, so we had this huge rise in popularity of Christian radio, the music stations, and they were playing in all of the department stores. But with the rise of people coming here from other countries, they don't want to hear Americans singing about Jesus Christ. So now I'm hearing much cleaner songs that they're curating on stations that don't play Christian music. They've kind of woken up to the fact that no one's listening to them anymore because they're sick of hearing. I'm sick to death of hearing about how many different people are someone sleeping with set to music. I'm just so tired of it. And it's not just me. I notice even my kids will say, "Well, oh, that artist only sings about her boyfriends." I'm like, "Oh, really? I never listen." Yeah, she used to date this one and she used to date that one, and so each song is about how she broke up with that one and now she's with this one. And it's just like, how many more people can she date? Even kids think it's ridiculous. It's bad when it doesn't fly over their head and they're not just into the beat. And so in this article, he says Lauren Daigle has topped the Christian music charts for several months now, landing on Ellen. He mentions her statements about homosexuality. She's not sure if it's a sin. But then he says, this is the meat of it here. He says, contrary to historic Orthodox Christian belief and biblical truth, Daigle held the position that would land her, not God, a higher honor among the world, stealing glory from God. She in fact set herself up as her own God, making an idol of her own passions and desires that she knows the world would accept. She now ranks among the top secular music artists and has recently claimed that she doesn't really consider herself to be a Christian artist. We've seen this before. Another example is popular rap artist Lecrae. And he talks about the Lecrae stories are, much older, so we all know that part. I'll skim down here. So here's where he gets to the crux of his argument against what we're seeing in contemporary Christian music. He says, "What purpose would a Christian have in falling for the world? The scriptures tell us exactly why. 1 Timothy 6:10 says, 'For the love of money is the root of all kinds of evils. It is through this craving that some have wandered away from the faith and pierced themselves with many pangs. When professing Christians place their own standing before the world above God's glory, idolatry ensues. The commercialized Christian music industry not only enables this idolatry, but promotes it to the degree that God's glory is robbed from him at many levels, including in churches. The vast majority of Christian contemporary music is produced by celebrity artists who've compromised on biblical truths in order to serve their own selfish desires. Now, the world wants to hear what these people say." He goes on, "The world likes it because what they say dismantles the biblical truth set forth by God in the revelation of his Son, Jesus Christ. The biblical truths that we've held for so long, truths such as human depravity, the exclusivity of Christ, God's hatred of sin, these truths are whitewashed with affirming antics and nuanced language that effectively stains the image of God from his perfect glory." I hadn't considered it in that way, to be honest. Reading this, I was thinking, wow, I've always thought that if the music is glorifying God and it's clean and its intent is to, it's the music that you would be singing because you're praising God, that's in and of itself, that's a good enough aim. This bears further thought and introspection. And I think it kind of couples up with a phenomenon that we attend an evangelical church where the music ministry is, so the musicians, it's a choir every so often, but for the most part, it's almost like a band. It's a band of musicians and singers, and they sing, and we stand up for one of the songs maybe, but all the rest of them, we're kind of seated, and it has the feel of a concert, even though we're singing and we're worshiping. It's not the same as traditional church when I was growing up. During all the music portions, everyone's standing up unless you can't. If you don't have a baby on your lap or you're not elderly or pregnant, you're standing up, and everyone's singing. And if you don't know the words, you got your hymn book out and you're singing from the hymn. If not, you know the words, you're singing it. And it was a participatory exercise, meaning everyone's involved in the praise and worship. And then when you sit down, the choir sits down, everybody's done. There is no kind of performance aspect to it. And I have been kind of troubled by that. I enjoy the music, but sometimes it just looks like we're sitting for a show. And sometimes, especially when new songs are being presented, I'm kind of like, okay, so you've written a new song and that's awesome, but I just want to sing a song that I know that is praise and worship, that I can actually get into praise and worship before the message comes, because that's the purpose of it, to prepare our hearts for the message. So this is a thorny issue, and it's one that bears more discussion, and I hope that we will have that discussion, not with arguing and fighting and backbiting and name-calling, but with a true heart for seeking out what God's will is for us as believers, not just in the pews, but also, because this is what's going on when we're in our cars. I've dubbed Lauren Daigle's music, that's kind of like the soundtrack to my life, because I'm always playing it when I'm cooking or when I'm, driving along from this place to that place, or if I just need something to kind of fill the time, because I spend a portion of the day where there's no sound at all because I'm by myself. But then there's other times when there is background noise and I'll cut some music on and it mixes all of that up. I don't want to be participating in an effort that doesn't glorify God, or where one person or group of people is stealing God's glory. But by the same token, you don't want to be listening to, hardcore rap music or hip hop or, things that are going to drag you down and tear down your spirit. So it's just interesting. So I thought I would share that here. If you, you can comment on the Facebook page or the YouTube stream, or, we still have some time in this segment. If you want to call in, call lines are open at 866-963-2037. 866-963-2037. So right now, that's an interesting piece, and I will also post it on the Facebook page just for anybody who wants to read it, and I'll put it in here. Let's see. So blacking out, yeah, they're saying Facebook is blacking out and closing, and so again, we still have the website. We're working on that. We're working on getting that up and running to make sure that we can have a place to stream to that is not censored by algorithms, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm also wanting to talk to you about this Democrats turning on Obama's establishment legacy as 2020 approaches. Now, this is pretty funny. And the reason I say it's funny is because he has really been unassailed. His legacy is never really discussed by anyone in the Democratic Party as having any flaws in it. But as they're turning to the 2020 primaries, there's a sense of deflation over the prospect of beating Donald Trump. And candidacies such as Elizabeth Warren and Joe Biden, those aren't stoking excitement within the Democrats. Vanity Fair has an author named T.A. Frank, and he said that Democrats surveying their options going into 2020 have begun to genuinely question the state of their party, and an increasing number of them are settling on the conclusion that Obama was a bad president. Again, I didn't write that, so don't email me about it. The quote from Vanity Fair is, if today's Democrats can't beat Trump, then maybe Hillary Clinton wasn't as bad a candidate as her critics claimed. And if Clinton wasn't the problem, then what was it? Such questions are behind a recent spike in debates on the left over Barack Obama's record. More and more voices seem to be saying, either obliquely or bluntly, that Obama was a bad president. And this is pretty interesting. I mean, honestly, the person they're quoting, Capital and Maine at Guardian U.S. journalist. He's a Loeb finalist and two-time winner. David Sirota tweeted out, you can believe Obama was an okay president and better than the GOP, and also believe that if we replicate Obama's record of historic increases in oil production, then climate change will kill lots of people. You can think both. It's weird that some folks can't understand that. Do you see how flawed the thinking is here? Instead of dealing in real issues, leftists have to kowtow to these sacred cows like climate change. And in doing so, they will hurt the economy. They will hurt economic prospects and make it so that Americans can't earn a living, make money, and that we can't grow our GDP. They're enjoying the economic boom that is current under the president we have now, but they will not acknowledge that part of it is because President Trump's opened up drilling leases. President Trump is making it possible for a lot of things that couldn't happen before to happen right now. And it's important economically because people who are working and earning and having a good opportunity to make a living for themselves, it lowers crime. Now, it doesn't address the spiritual condition, but it definitely puts our country on a footing where we are in a better position to address other ills that we have going on. And of course, an economic boom can be a negative in that people don't acknowledge the problems, other problems that we're facing. But I mean, there's good and bad with all of it. So I just thought it was interesting that they're writing about that people are acknowledging it on Twitter. Also, Twitter says they're having trouble loading my timeline for some reason. Makes you wonder why. Why would they be having trouble loading my timeline? My little old timeline. Boy. Anyway, thank you for being here today. God bless you. Good evening from the Heartland.